In the chaotic, multi-level marketplace of New Syrtis, truth was a commodity, and Corran's job was to set the price. His office was a box, barely larger than a ship's coffin bunk, wedged between a stall selling vat-grown protein skewers and a black market tech chop shop. A perpetual haze, smelling of grilled meat, ozone, and atmospheric haze, filtered through his door curtain of clacking plastic beads. From his stool, he could see the vibrant, beautiful mess of the hub. A vertical tangle of glowing signs, makeshift walkways, and dangling power cables that formed the city's chaotic heart. It was a place where a lie could make you rich and the truth could get you killed. And Corran made his living navigating the treacherous space between the two. A man pushed through the beads, bringing a chill of fear with him. He was clearly a freeholder, not by a uniform, but by the subtle, weightless drift to his movements. A grace that was alien to Mars's gravity. His frame was wiry, with the lean muscle of a life spent working in zero-G, yet he seemed to hold himself with a strange fragility, as if constantly braced for a force his body wasn't built for. In his eyes was the 1,000-meter stare of a man used to measuring distance in AUs, not meters. His jumpsuit was patched, but a faint laser-etched sigil of a Jovian mining co-op was still visible on the collar as he placed a data slate on Corran's scarred metal counter. Authentication, the freeholder rasped, his voice thin. Geological, survey of a claim in the freeholds. Corran picked up the slate. It was a standard issue model, cold and heavy. Standard verification or deep dive forensics? Just standard. I just need to know it's clean, that the data is real. The freeholder's eyes flickered to the crowded walkway outside. The sellers are waiting, at the noodle bar across the way. Corran grunted, his gaze following the freeholders. He saw them, two figures in a shadowed booth. One wore a patched void suit jacket with the faded, cracked insignia of the Hyperion Mineral Group, a Saturnian syndicate that had collapsed a decade ago, leaving thousands of workers adrift. They weren't just predators, they were survivors who'd learned the wrong lessons, radiating a stillness that stood out in the hub's constant motion. This wasn't a standard transaction. This was an ambush waiting for a victim. Payment first, Corran said flatly. The freeholder slid a credit chit across the counter. The amount was generous. Too generous for a simple check. Corran's internal alarms, honed by a decade of surviving in New Syrtis, began to chime. He slotted the chit, confirmed the transfer, and then inserted the freeholder's data slate into his console. He ran the diagnostics. Encryption protocols standard unbroken. Source tagging logged to a registered outer frontier prospecting ship, the Rock Wren. No malware, no data ghosts, no hidden tracker scripts. On the surface, it was perfect. Too perfect. He pulled up the raw data, a swirling holographic cloud of seismic readings and mineral density plots. It showed a small unclaimed asteroid, a plum prize laced with veins of neodymium and platinum so rich it was practically a myth. The lines were clean, the concentrations uniform, the background radiation levels unnaturally stable. It wasn't a scan of a rock that had been battered by the cosmos for eons. It was a work of art. Corran had seen thousands of surveys. Real ones were messy. They had sensor ghosts, flawed readings, chaotic mineral deposits. They had the signature of reality, which was fundamentally imperfect. This slate didn't have a single flaw. It wasn't a fraudulent copy of a real survey. It was a perfect, idealized template. A beautiful lie designed to be sold over and over to desperate men. Corran looked from the flawless data to the freeholder's terrified, hopeful face. He could sign off, take the money, do the job he was paid for. The slate was technically a clean and authentic piece of data. Its contents were just impossible. It was the safest option. But the desperate hope in the freeholder's eyes reminded Corran of his own father, a dust hauler from Arzia, who'd been ruined not by a clear-cut crime, but by a predatory equipment lease from a Commonwealth subsidiary. A contract that was, on paper, perfectly legal and had bled him dry 1 percentage point at a time. It's clean, Corran said, his voice level. Relief washed over the freeholder's face, so pure it was painful to watch. Thank the founders. Thank you. Corran pulled the slate from the console. His left hand held it out for the freeholder to take. His right hand, hidden below the counter, tapped a single command on his console's physical interface. A custom-written script, silent and elegant, shot into the slate. It didn't corrupt the data, it didn't erase it. It just wrapped the core survey file in a layer of cascading encryption that would, upon being accessed by any system other than Corran's own console, trigger a logic bomb that would render the file permanently unreadable. It was the digital equivalent of a drop of acid on a masterpiece, timed to dissolve the canvas only after the sale was complete. "Here you go," Corran said, placing the slate in the freeholder's shaking hand. "Good luck with your claim." The freeholder nodded, overwhelmed with gratitude. He clutched the slate to his chest and hurried out, back towards the noodle bar and the waiting predators. Corran watched the transaction from his shadowed box. He saw handshakes, another credit chit passed over, and smiles on the faces of the two sellers. They had their money. The freeholder had his dream, sealed in a small black slate. For now, everyone was happy. When the freeholder's ship arrived, at a barren rock weeks from now, and he tried to load his priceless survey, the data would simply evaporate into digital noise. The sellers would be untraceable. He would be furious, but he would be alive and hopefully wiser. Corran turned back to his console and wiped his custom script, leaving no trace. He hadn't sold the truth, and he hadn't endorsed a lie. He had sold a chance. In the layered, chaotic world of New Syrtis, it was the most valuable commodity of all, and the only one he ever gave away for free.